We are recording. So, this is the PUDcast with Jason and Mike. I'm Jason.
I'm Mike.
And we are coming to you live from Game Swap, located right here in beautiful downtown Lincoln in the great state of North Carolina.
In the PUDcast studio.
Coming to you live from the brand new PUDcast studio. Mike, once again, thank you for allowing us to use your store to come in here and to do this thing. Once again, man, much appreciation.
No problem, brother. I mean, it's a blast.
Oh, I've had a ball last week, and I tell you something else, Mike. Before we get too deep, I'd like to thank everybody this past week who has listened to the first episode of the PUDcast. We've had some pretty positive reactions. You know,
Absolutely.
one weekend, and we're hearing some really good things. And I just want to say thank you to to all you guys who've listened.
Very supportive.
Very. I mean, like I said, the amount
we still got kinks to work out.
Oh, well, the kinks will be worked out as we go. Just like I said, you know, Mike.
It's on the fly.
It's on the fly, man. We're doing this live. We're not really testing anything. We're not practicing. We're just doing it raw.
Yeah.
You know?
Which is how we saw it. We saw it raw.
Yeah.
You were talking about it just the other day. Just that raw feeling. You know, what we remember.
Yes.
Seeing and what we experienced, and going off the feeling of that.
Exactly. In other words, you know, it's like something else we talked about was going back, you know, doing research, watching some of the old videos, which of course we should do, and I want to do anyway out of my own personal love for this stuff. But at the same time, I don't want to overanalyze it.
Right.
You know, I don't want to go into it and be like, oh, wait a minute, you know, on April 4th is when, you know, yeah. I mean, because that's the actual date, you know, exactly. And I was like, you know, I don't want to go back and make a thesis out of this thing. I just want to talk about the memories that we have and the experiences we shared as kids watching this stuff, you know, and being able to go back and, you know, putting an adult viewpoint on it and everything. But, you know, we don't want to get too deep. This isn't, like I said, we're not writing a thesis here. We're not trying to go so deep in depth journalistic stuff. We're just talking,
right? And sharing our experiences, and putting it out there, and hopefully exposing a whole new group to what we saw and what we grew up with and what's still out there. You can find it.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's you know, a lot of people talk about current product versus new product, and I know that we're definitely going to do a podcast directly toward that. But, you know, hearing like a good friend of mine who's more probably into the newer stuff, you know, within like the last, you know, at least 18 years, you know, he was like, hey,
stuff.
Yeah, I know, right? God almighty, man. If that doesn't make you feel old. You know, the more recent stuff, you know, over the past 18 years.
2000s and up.
Yeah, exactly. You know, he was talking about going back and looking up some of the stuff we were talking about and hopefully getting turned on to a brand new, you know, a brand new experience.
The Cena era.
There you go.
I mean, that's honestly, that's kind of what I view the 2000s and up.
Absolutely.
You know, even say like the 80s, you know, even into the 90s. Those, honestly, you know, the Flair Hogan era.
Sure, absolutely.
You know,
right.
You call it that.
And
definitely, I mean, you know, with WWE being it.
Oh, the only.
Yes.
The only show in town.
I mean, TNA, and you've got your other companies, but I mean, WWE is the big.
It's the show. It's the show.
And I would definitely call it the Cena era.
Absolutely, and you know, not to get too deep into everything, because we do have to get on Paul Jones and Boogie Woogie Man. You know, we have to have our priorities, but you know how I feel about Cena. You know, people love him, people hate him. I think he's, you know, really a living icon. I mean, I have nothing but, you know, respect for John Cena. I'm a fan. When I do watch the current product, you know, usually I watch it for Cena.
Right.
I just think he is he's a workhorse and probably the most loyal, quite possibly the most loyal professional wrestler in any company in any era. I mean, truth be told, I mean, he carried WWE on his back. Mm-hmm. But anyway, that's a whole other podcast for a whole other time.
Whole other podcast.
So, Mike, let's just jump into this thing. I believe, if you want to give a little recap, or if you want to just jump into 86, you know.
Episode 2, Jimmy Valiant, Paul Jones, boy from New York City, and Mr. Florida.
Yes, sir.
We are deep in this feud.
Yes.
We got a little break from it. You know, we covered, you know, 84 and 85.
Yes.
And right there at the end of 85, or Starcade, was they took a little break from their feud,
right.
and Valiant went to a feud with the Midnight Express and Jim Cornette.
That's right. And you know, Paul Jones started kind of going into one with the Road Warriors a little bit with Barbarian and Tijo Khan.
All right.
That was kind of the you know, not a major feud, but it was definitely being talked about in the interviews and the promos. That was kind of what was being promoted from the Paul Jones side of it.
Yeah.
You know,
and he was also deep in the feud with Superstar Graham.
Oh, that's correct, right?
And Manny Fernandez.
And I believe Tully and Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man were having a little.
They had a little
feud,
side
feud, you know,
which
little baby
actually,
feud.
If you ever get a chance to check out, I know it was a house show match. I think he may even did maybe one TV match, but the Jimmy Valiant Tully Blanchard house show match was a really, really good match. I know you see a lot of the comedy from Jimmy Valiant in some of his matches.
Sure.
I mean, it is a really good match. Definitely worth checking out.
And you know, Mike, you just brought up a great point. You know, sometimes the Boogie Woogie Man was looked as more of an entertaining type wrestler than an actual, honest to God.
For sure.
You know, but man, he could go.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he could go. I mean, you know, when we were coming up watching on wrestling, you know, most of the Boogie Woogie Man's enhancement matches were what, a minute long.
Yeah.
You know, he'd come in, he'd do the,
yeah.
you know, he'd do the hand clap, he'd knock him down, hit him with a big elbow. That was it. But the man could go.
Absolutely.
I mean, the man. I mean, he was from New York and the Valiant
Absolutely.
Brothers. I mean, the man was a tremendous wrestler. Sometimes I think our generation maybe doesn't give that enough credit and enough props because he was the entertainer. He was just the wild man, the one who got everybody. He was like a hype man.
Right.
He was
absolutely.
He was a hype man, but
definitely for that company. He brought a lot of kids in too.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, hey,
for that,
you're talking to one.
You know, I mean, you're talking about a territory and an era, both where wrestling was very serious.
Oh yes, yes.
It was taken very serious.
Absolutely.
But you know, with Boogie, it was he was bringing that kid element in. You know, he was bringing the fun.
There was a light, a lightness to him. You know, even when he was feuding, because he was just so over the top with his personality. But like I said, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
The man could go. And the stuff with Tully, see, now I'm not familiar. I've never really watched any of the matches with Tully, but I will be going back now and checking this stuff out. Because I would really, now, because, you know, going back and doing some of the research in this stuff, I'm like, wait a minute, I forgot that the Boogie Woogie Man and Tully even had an issue. Now I want to go back and see what some of these in-ring matches were, or the product inside the ring, bell to bell.
Now, let me ask you this. I know before we get into 86, and 86 is a
Oh boy,
crazy year, especially on that side, just with Paul Jones and Valiant, and it lasts the entire year.
It's the year.
This is the year.
Yes, 86 is the year of the war.
Yeah, this is the war. This is coming, and it gets crazy.
And yes.
And you've seen it enough Boogie promos, and you've seen enough Boogie matches, and this is a time where, you know, Boogie's giving out the sugars generously.
Right. Just ask David Crockett and Tony Schiavone.
Ask Tony Schiavone.
Tony Schiavone probably kissed the Boogie Woogie Man more in 1986 than he did his own wife. Oh, he was an open spirit, man. He was free spirit, bro.
Well, I mean, Tony, you know,
Tony took it.
He fought it, though. He
Yo.
fought it.
But he took it like a champ,
He
man.
did.
He
He
took
did.
it like
He
a
did.
champ, but brother, you
He
can
did.
tell it was awkward.
But let me ask you this. Do you think that Boogie was doing anything, I won't say, you know, during, or do you think Boogie was doing anything extracurricular?
Like cocaine?
No. Well, if you're going to throw it out there,
I mean,
guess
yes.
We'll say cocaine.
Yes. If you're asking me, do I think the Boogie Woogie Man
Drugs.
was doing some hardcore drugs, cocaine especially? Absolutely.
Oh my God,
Dude, it was.
I wasn't gonna put it out there that hard, but I mean,
Hey, this is the PUDcast, bro.
Yeah.
We don't cut no fucking
Well, see,
corners
that's the
here, bro.
You know, I don't see Boogie as the powder type.
Really?
No,
Dude, I don't see him doing anything but powder.
I think he is just hype. I think I'd imagine Boogie just chilling and smoking. That's
Oh,
it.
I could definitely see him smoking on a blunt now. That's for sure.
But there's something else that's just.
You see, man, me and you differ on this one because I can only see the Boogeyman doing a line the size of Texas before he walks out, man.
But,
I can see him snorting a line off Big Mama's big titties, man.
Okay. All right.
Dude, if he snorted a line off them titties, you know that some bitch had to be huge.
Oh my God! Now listen, I can see. Okay, I can definitely see that during the promos. He's definitely out of control on the promos.
Oh, dude, wild man.
He's all over the place. And he's just grabbing the announcer,
kissing them, man.
It may be ecstasy.
Dude.
Early ecstasy. Who knows? And what was the equivalent of ecstasy in the 80s?
It was around.
Was it?
It was around. I think they called it MDMA more or less.
Well,
you know, I think it was before the slang of it, but it was around. Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I could see the Boogie Woogie Man. Like I said, dude, I can imagine Big Mama having a big line on them big titties, and I can see the Boogie Man snorting that son of a bitch from the left nipple to the right. And you know them titties on Big Mama, man. Today is going to be titty talk about Big Mama.
I'm telling you, there is no way. There is no damn way that would happen. That would... No. I mean, that's death.
Well, but we're talking about the Boogie Woogie Man, brother.
Well, you might as well just cut a line across the Blue Ridge Mountains.
Seriously. For real.
There is no way.
I'm telling you what, man, that line would be as long, goddamn. But we are talking about the Boogie Woogie Man. If anybody could do it, it would be the Boogie Man.
Okay,
it would be the Boogie Man.
Me tell you about, okay, I'll tell you why. I'm not quite sold on the cocaine because of the matches. The matches were not fast at all. I mean, they were fast as far as time.
Right.
You know, as far as, quality of time, say like 2-minute matches.
Sure.
But as far as speed was...
Oh, no.
It was not there.
Right.
I mean, if you put somebody in a sleeper slower...
Dude, I mean, a lot of rest holds.
Yeah.
In a 2-minute match, there'd be a lot of rest holds.
A lot of rest holds. A lot of, the thumbs to the throat.
Man, he may have been so jacked up he needed a little break. I mean, sometimes you get so wired up, man, he might have been afraid of a heart attack or something. But anyway, man, let's get off the cocaine. but yes, to answer your question, brother, I think, man, 90% of those guys back in that day was on some kind of...
It's hard to say with some, but I know from listening firsthand, with interviews with the guys back in that day, definitely it was around.
It was around.
It was being used.
And I tell you, man, that was just the 80s in general. I mean, cocaine was huge in the 80s amongst just regular people. Man, you bring in the wrestling crowd.
Oh, yeah.
And also, Mike, I think this is a good time to do a disclaimer. We are absolutely not accusing anyone of ever doing any kind of drug. We're just over here talking and just kind of going by what we see and from my observation.
I've never heard of Jimmy ever doing anything from anybody.
Right. And so it's hard. And he just
that was more or less just poking fun at the craziness of Jimmy
of the Boogie Woogie Man, because it's almost like if he wasn't on cocaine, then what the hell?
Yeah.
So all right, bro, let's dig back deep into this thing, man. So we're going into '86.
Going into '86 hard, coming out of Starrcade.
Right.
And the feud ignites back up, and I think at this time, like I said, Paul Jones's Army at this time was kind of low. Abby was out after Starrcade.
Right. You had the Baron.
Still had the Baron.
Baron was in. Tijo Khan.
Barbarian.
The Barbarian
was the mainstay.
Yes, he was like the top guy at this point in the Army, and I think that was it.
That was it
at this point.
And Tijo Khan was kind of
he was on his way out.
He was there. No, he was there. He was in and out.
Right.
I think he was doing a lot of stuff for Bill Watts, Mid-South UWF at that time too. Just going back and forth, they were trading talent.
Sure. Right.
But he was there. Sometimes he was not. So Jimmy's got his own, like we talked about,
starting his own army.
Starting his own army, his street people.
Right.
He's got a lot of friends.
And who were some of these guys, Mike?
He had like Magnum, Dusty, Manny.
Manny, obviously the bull.
The bull.
Rocky King. Rocky King was coming out. Who else? Chavo.
Yeah.
No, I mean Hector. I'm sorry. Hector.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Hector was there. He was in on it. Wahoo was around. That's right. Yes, sir.
And an old friend, old Mid-Atlantic, favorite mainstay was Pistol Pez Watley.
Pez. And I'm going to tell you, Mike, going back once again, and let me just do another side note. I love being able to use the term research as I'm going back to watch old professional wrestling, because I've heard other people say, well, you need to do your research on this entertainment. And I'm like, man, it's not research, it's fun, you know. Yeah. To me, doing research is something you do for, academics or a job or something like that. And even though the podcast isn't a job, I still feel like I can actually say I'm doing research now. Yeah. And that's great. Yeah. And the thing that I realized about Pistol Pez Watley, is how, honest to God, good this man was.
Oh, yeah, he was.
Wow.
Yeah.
I never realized.
He was a great worker. Sure. And he had been around for so long, and you just don't even realize how long Pez had been around.
Well, it definitely showed in his work.
Probably about 10 years.
Which definitely makes sense. Yeah. Because the man was, like I said, once again, I had no idea. Because when I started watching wrestling, it was right at the turn. And then Pez, or Shaska at that time, was working more of the heel style. So I didn't really get to see a lot of his babyface work, which really I think a baby can really show off their talents a little bit more. Because they don't have to cheat. They don't have to take the shortcuts. Yeah. It's all about the technical skill. And, man, Pez was top of the line, brother. He really was.
Yeah, Pez was a solid worker.
Solid, man.
He had some great matches, especially in the Mid-Atlantic area. With another Tully.
Yes.
Had some great matches with Tully. He was just all around great worker.
He was
great
just all around. Great. I was just about to say, man, he was the full package. Yeah. He had the interview skills and he had the ring skills. And he was over with the fans, brother. I mean, some of those baby promos he was cutting. Yeah. He was connected, man. He was connected.
But here's the problem. And it's an era where he's kind of doing the jive thing. That was. For whatever reason, it was a big thing in the South.
Sure, during that era, it was.
And it was still there. You had guys like Rufus.
Yep. Yes.
Who else was around that time?
As far as black wrestlers?
Yes.
We had Ernie Ladd, who was still...
Ernie Ladd was onto himself. And for sure, I'd love to do it just
on Ernie.
On Ernie.
Yeah.
Because, and I know I'm going to get a lot of heat for this, but I put Ernie Ladd on a higher pedestal than Andre the Giant as far as big man.
There we go. Whoa. And so now it starts. Now the podcast gets controversial. I knew it was a matter of time, brother. Yeah. That's a whole other podcast.
Whole other thing.
But he was up there, brother.
Oh, he
was. Yes.
But you had guys like Rufus, and guys like Pez,
Rocky King,
Pork Chop Cash, Rocky King, Thunderbolt Patterson.
Yes.
But they all kind of did that jive thing, and that was a big thing through the 70s and early 80s.
And on up into the 80s, yes, sir.
That was about to change.
Yes, sir.
That was about to change in a big, big way. So here we are in March of '86. Pez on NWA Worldwide is doing a promo off by himself, with David Crockett, and he's giving a good promo, he's talking, and here comes Jimmy Valiant.
Right.
Now, they were obviously friends and partners.
Right. Well, I was just going to say, well, you keep going. Actually, you keep going. Yes.
Now, here's where it gets interesting, because Jimmy's doing his dance, and he's going all crazy, he's all over the place. But Jimmy makes the remark.
Yes, sir.
And here's where it gets weird. And I think this is a part of the booking that was really, really solid.
Yes,
and very, very interesting.
Yes,
just to break down and just look at it.
Because it had layers.
Oh yeah,
it has. Sure. This thing has layers, people. Yes,
definitely. Jimmy says about Pez, Pistol Pez Watley is the greatest black
athlete. Not athlete.
In wrestling today. Not just athlete. Not like great athlete. Greatest black.
Yes.
Athlete.
He puts that division.
Yes.
There. Now this is a good guy. And this is also a man who's
a fan favorite.
Yes, and also talking about the black and white thing, man. This is a Boogie Woogie Man. You would think would be the last character to do that because he was about everybody.
Yep.
He was about everybody. It didn't matter black, white, old, young, everybody.
Yeah.
His street people were his street people. It didn't matter what
color.
Well, at least that was on the surface.
That's right.
That was on the surface.
That's right. Okay. now you look at it from there, and as soon as this is out of his mouth,
Pistol Pez
triggered.
It triggered him, man.
Triggered.
His facial expression changes.
Everything changed right at that moment.
You could feel it. You could feel it.
Feel it, and out of nowhere, Pez turns him around and clocks him. Knocks him completely out.
The shot heard around the world.
Yes. Nobody saw this coming.
No.
This was not build up. This was just one word, one trigger, boom.
Done.
Boom.
And it was done. And you got to remember, man, especially on Worldwide, Pez was like the headliner.
Oh, I think he was more mid card, but
as far as the show itself,
he was a big name.
I tell you, man, going back and watch some of these, Worldwide, kind of, those shows even had their tiers back in the day, like Raw, SmackDown. Today, and the Worldwide show really did focus heavily on Pez and Boogie Man. Like they would usually either headline it or they would open the show, which were both equally important. Right. And but no, man,
it's definitely heavily showcased.
Oh yes,
definitely heavily showcased, and heavily showcased as a face.
Yes, a huge face, an up and coming face.
But you take that and you look at it as far as, and we'll go into what happened afterwards. As soon as he clocks Valiant, there's the turn.
Right.
Then I don't know. This is the one thing I have the problem with about this.
Yes, and an understandable problem.
I don't agree with. I agree with almost everything about this angle, except for the fact that Pez pulls out of his back pocket a pair of scissors.
He has it on him.
And cuts the ponytail off of Jimmy Valiant.
Yes.
Now, I love everything about this except for this part.
Right. It's like, why are you carrying the scissors?
Why do you have scissors in your back pocket?
Exactly.
Is that just a random thing?
Well,
no, I think it was just a rushed thing.
Yes, it was probably one of those things you're turning right now. Yeah. Now, I have a theory.
I've heard this theory.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening, just to give you a heads up, whenever an old school professional wrestling angle doesn't necessarily make sense, sometimes I try to justify it and have a backstory. I do try to overanalyze it. So
which is a good thing.
It is, man. I think it
justifies it.
It justifies it. Here
in a bizarro world.
And it can make sense. But here's my theory.
Yes.
This is what I think. I think, what I would like to think. I think as Pez was walking out to do this, I think Paul Jones grabbed him. And he says, hey, the Boogie Woogie Man's a racist. I really do. He doesn't look at you as an equal. He's not going to refer to you as an athlete. He's going to refer to you as a black athlete. He's going to make that division. And I think Pistol Pez like, nah, Paul Jones, Boogie Woogie Man wouldn't say that. I think Paul Jones handed him the scissors and be like, if he does, you know what to do with these. And it would also explain the instant that Pistol Pez turns. Because his brother, as soon as the Boogie Woogie Man says it, the facial expression, of course this is all bullshit. Obviously it's complete bullshit.
Yeah.
But I like to try to justify
it.
It would make sense. It would make sense.
Definitely in an alternative universe, this makes sense.
If wrestling was completely truly real, this is what happened.
This is what happened. This is the shit you would see today on like a Raw.
Yes.
You would see what was happening
backstage.
But you wasn't going to see what happened backstage back then.
Back then, exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah. If this was done back then, that's exactly what would have happened.
We would see that before.
We would have seen that part on,
exactly.
on the TNA or the Raw show or in the SmackDown. We've seen the cameras. Nobody notices the cameras there.
There, yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, nobody notices the cameras right in their face, full frame face, talking between one another.
Right. Nobody ever sees that, but
we'll talk about that later too, as far as new versus old.
Yeah. Once again, man, that's going to be, that could turn into a series. That could turn into a month-long series. But this is, really, Mikey. This is, in my opinion, even though the war had already been waged and it had already been hot, it cooled down. But this, in my opinion, was the shot heard around the world.
Oh yeah, for sure.
This was it.
Shot. This was the big shot fired,
yes.
And it was a great angle too. I'll tell you why, because it was sudden. It was sudden. It was
unexpected, man. Unexpected.
You got Jimmy, and one of his good friends. His good friend turns on him because of something that Jimmy said, something that he heard, that reached out. And here's the thing, and it's one of those things where a heel turn is almost justified.
It's almost justifiable. Actually, man, I will go a step further and say it was justifiable.
Right, absolutely.
Because what Boogie Woogie Man said was wrong. And one thing I was going to bring up, Mike, I don't think we've even talked about this, but going back doing some of my research, did you know David Crockett had been referring to Pistol Pez as the best black athlete?
I had not.
Yes, sir.
I had not heard that.
That had actually, now I'd only heard it once on Saturday night, but he had actually brought this up, at least to my knowledge, one other time. So this storyline, I had already been planning a little bit by David Crockett, but the Boogie Woogie Man took it.
Right.
And kind of, elevated it. But, as we've talked, just between us off of the PUDcast, that's really some bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
The way Boogie Man would refer to Pez, to make that division or that separation or that segregation, it's total bullshit, and Pistol Pez, I think, was completely within his right to be upset.
It's one of those deals where, most of the time heel justifies being a heel because he's mean, nasty.
He's just an asshole.
Yeah. I don't like people. I like to hurt people.
Or they'll do it for money,
like
or a title shot. Yeah, there's always a selfish reason.
Yeah.
Yes.
Self-justification.
Yes.
But this was one of those instances where,
he spoke out of turn.
Jimmy Valiant was wrong.
He's wrong in that.
He's wrong.
Absolutely.
He's absolutely wrong. Mm-hmm. This is right, but
I don't think Boogie meant to be wrong. I think Boogie had the best of intentions, and which is why you couldn't be mad at Boogie, because I hate to say it, but Boogie didn't know no better.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Right. And it was justifiable. And
absolutely.
And like I said, this was the shot. This was the absolute. Okay, the war is on.
Yeah.
It never stopped.
No.
It may have cooled down.
No, yeah.
But it not only is it back on, but brother, it's back on with a vengeance because we just took one of the best up and comers, one of the most popular over characters, and we talk about the black and white thing, and man, we got to bring that up again because this, even though it was wrong saying that, this is one of the first black wrestlers in that era to be elevated to that particular point, at least up to that point.
Right.
I mean, Pez was brother. I mean, he was riding high. Yeah. Understandably so, because like I say, man, the man could work.
Yeah.
I never really knew how good bell to bell that man was.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, bro, let's so he turns, he cuts it.
That's a big turn. Cuts Jimmy's ponytail off. Of course, all the faces, pile out from the back, make the save. Gone. Guess what happens to follow the next week? Pez has joined up with Paul Jones's army, and it is becoming
now
an army.
And honestly, Mike, in my opinion, this is when it did officially
became the army.
The like I said, going back and watching some of these videos, I was not aware, but the week that Pistol Pez became Shaska, And you know this.
And he would adopt the new name of Shaska Watley.
Yes.
And the pistol pez altogether.
No more pistol pez. He's now Shaska Watley. He is changing his outfit. He is changing everything.
Completely.
And this completely.
Yes.
And this is also the same week that Paul Jones goes from the tuxedos and suits and changes into the fatigues. This is the same week.
Outfit.
Yes, the week that Shaska is officially a member of the Army is the same week. And this, brother, now you have Shaska, you have Tijo Khan, you have the Baron, you know, and now you have Shaska, and you have number 1 Paul Jones.
Now, I wanted to spell a myth right quick.
Yes.
Yeah, I've heard this. A lot of people talk about this. You know, as far as Paul Jones and switching over to the fatigues, the general outfit, you know, the riding crop.
Yeah.
He ditches the cane, adapts the riding crop. A lot of people will tell you that he at that time had a Hitler mustache.
But he didn't.
He did not.
No, I've been watching.
He just had a full, you know, he just had one of those full, you know, 70s, 80s mustaches.
Now
it looked like a Magnum PI mustache.
Yeah, it was a porn stash.
It
was a porn stash.
Let's call it. It was not a Hitler stash.
Now having Baron von Raschke in your group probably didn't help with the Hitler thing.
Right.
Who in my opinion was.
I think that's where they kind of get that crossed up.
Because the Baron would goose step for anybody that's listening that's maybe not familiar with that.
We were talking about that
just yesterday,
just the other day, and how that was kind of hardcore. We didn't think about it at that time.
No,
because,
at the time.
You know, we as kids, you know, we had very little exposure to the old German culture.
Exactly, and it was not a very PC era either.
No, absolutely.
I mean,
not.
professional, and I know we've even discussed.
Yeah.
We will be definitely doing a podcast about PC era, 80s type wrestling. Some of the things that could get by, some of the things that could be said.
Right.
That went straight racist, straight homophobic, straight.
Absolutely.
I mean, you name it, man. If there's a negative thing that you could talk about, professional wrestling talked about it. So you know, you definitely had that, but you know, the Baron would goose step in the ring, and when he would do his claw,
the setup for the claw,
which looked like a Hell Hitler See How salute, and I mean, Jesus, this stuff would not. But now you know, it would not even consider.
You can ask JBL about that.
That's right.
You know, I don't know how long. That was almost a decade ago.
Yeah, it's about 10 years.
Over a decade ago.
Yeah,
really.
by now.
But yeah, he got a lot of trouble for
that.
Doing that in Germany.
I mean, come on, man. Yeah. What a dumbass. I mean, fucking A. He should get in trouble. But yeah, you know, PC culture is definitely, and I think it's, you know, sometimes PC culture, in my personal opinion, can sometimes go a little bit too far in this. But I think in this particular instance, you know, I don't think you need goose steppers in professional wrestling. I definitely don't think you need any of the, you know, like the homophobic type stuff. You know, I mean, man, they would straight up call each other fags. I mean, you know, straight up.
Well, going back to that, you know, I remember when Jerry Lawler and Jimmy Valiant had their interview in Memphis.
That guy.
Oh yeah.
That guy heat, bro.
That Lawler straight up called
him a fag.
He called him a fag.
Yeah, and I mean, he was the good guy.
No, yeah, well,
Lawler was the baby. Yeah,
Lawler was the baby, and Valiant was too at that time. But that's what turned Valiant.
Valiant, right?
If you ever want to see, you know, Jimmy Valiant as a heel,
go back and watch that stuff.
Go to Memphis.
Yes, yes.
Because that was some good stuff.
Well, I tell you what, man. Let's get back on track, brother.
So we're talking about that was the impact of it. Really, just, you know, how big this was and what was happening.
And the fan reactions were and then Pistol or now Shaska. I have to get the terminology correct now. Is going around the country waving this piece of hair. I mean, it's a trophy.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's so much heat, man.
Yeah.
I mean, people are just going crazy.
Crazy about this.
With this stuff.
It's a big deal, and it is getting.
And it's getting hotter. Yes.
It's getting heated.
Yes.
To the point to where we're going into the summer.
Right. Bash is coming up.
Bash is the time.
Yes.
And the feud between Shaska and Jimmy is getting hotter and hotter.
Yes. Now, another little side note here, Mike. Shaska is also going around and cutting the hair of all his opponents, like in enhancement matches. They almost got to Raging Bull's hair. Jimmy made the save. In fact, that may have been Jimmy's return to television. I'm a little, because they kept Jimmy off TV for a few weeks, which was great. Something else I never realized.
Absolutely.
It's like they had to keep him off television because he was so upset. He was so distraught. And when he came back, brother, came back with a vengeance.
Yes.
But yeah, at this time, Shaska's going around to make a point,
Mm-hmm.
and he starts cutting people's hair.
And that's going to lead us into the bash.
Yes.
Jimmy Valiant, Shaska Watley, hair versus
Hair
hair.
versus hair.
Hair versus hair.
Yes. This is when the feud, the war,
Mm-hmm.
really at this point, man, it is in full swing.
Mm-hmm.
It is in full swing. We're going into the bash for this thing. Yes.
So we're into this match, and we're gonna get a win for Jimmy Valiant.
Yes.
Side in this war.
Yeah. Good night, Irene.
Good night, Irene. Shaska's out.
Goes to
and
sleep.
Gets the head shaved.
Yes.
That's the last time I believe Shaska Watley ever had hair.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, he went bald and stayed bald until the time he retired and unfortunately passed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kept it shaved from then on.
Yes,
out.
sir. Yes, sir.
I'm surprised they didn't adopt a Russian. Doesn't seem like every Russian
that was bald.
Had a shaved head.
Yeah.
Was bald.
I really felt when I was a kid that no one in Russia had hair. Honestly, because even Mikhail Gorbachev was bald, for the most part,
Yeah. I think it had something to do with Chernobyl. I honestly think it was something. I'm being serious. No, damn it. You can be serious about your Paul Jones theory in the background. I can have my Chernobyl theory.
Brother, I'm listening, man.
This is my alternate universe. You know what? This is why Russian wrestlers were bald. It had to do with Chernobyl.
No, but it was the meltdown, brother.
They were just mutants. They were genetic freaks of nature, and they were all mutants.
Now, when I go back and watch these old matches now, that is absolutely. I'm like, man, they must have been exposed.
They must have been exposed. And they had superhuman strength.
Yes, they were huge muscles, man. They got jacked up and bald.
Downfall, couldn't have any hair.
Except goatees.
Except
goatees.
Goatees. Yeah, the chin was safe.
Yes.
The chin was safe, but otherwise.
It actually accelerated. It accelerated the growth.
Yeah.
I love it,
everything
man.
moved down.
No, that's perfect, brother. That's perfect.
But here's the thing, in the 80s, I'm not sure about the 70s how, but I'm sure it was a big deal. It was less done. It was more done in the 80s, but the hair versus hair match and being shaved bald, that was a huge deal.
Oh yeah,
that was the biggest insult.
It was, man. It's exactly right. It was a pride thing.
Which is where the bald-headed geek chance.
I was just come. Yeah, the bald-headed geek thing is definitely.
Unless you're one of the baby faces that unfortunately got their head shaved, bald-headed geek just didn't apply to that.
You're right. No, you did not say that.
Everybody kept hush about that. You don't call the face a bald-headed geek.
No, and especially the Boogie Woogie Man.
Exactly.
Especially the Boogie Woogie Man,
exactly.
Which we're going to get to how I felt. Well, I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay. I'm going to stop right there. Yeah. You keep going, Mike. Yes.
Let's see. Yeah. So Shaska has his, and it was one of the funniest reactions. Obviously, I remember seeing this, not seeing it live because I think it was actually in Charlotte at the Grady Cole. It was in the Grady. No. What was the outside?
Was it the old arena where the Knights played? Memorial Stadium.
Was it Memorial Stadium?
I think it was Memorial Stadium.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember it was outside show.
Pretty sure it's Memorial.
I remember seeing it on the local channel, Channel 9's.
Right.
Howard Johnson.
Which, God bless Howard Johnson.
Howard Johnson was one of the local sports announcers.
Yes, who really loved and put over professional wrestling.
Absolutely.
The only one really
that would
do it. Yes.
And if it was a big show, especially a Bash or a Starrcade, you would see highlights.
Yes, on Channel 9.
On Channel 9.
Yes.
I was up. I was staying up.
And for anybody out there that's maybe not familiar with what we're talking about, go watch. Was it Bash '85 where they bring Flair in the Channel 9 helicopter? Who was with Howard Johnson? He was with him. So yeah, man, that was a guy that was out of Charlotte. He was a journalist. He was a sports guy.
Yes.
Who truly put over pro wrestling. He understood it. And like I said, in that era, they talk about WWE on ESPN now.
Oh yeah.
Which blows my mind.
That was a huge deal.
Yeah, that's like I said, once again for another podcast, I'm just putting over the fact that you've got no mainstream coverage of professional wrestling. Unless it was on Channel 9 with Howard Johnson.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Once again, Howard Johnson, shout out, brother. Pud number 1.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was great.
Absolutely.
It was a blast. But, it was a huge deal.
Yes.
It was a big deal. I mean, if you get to, I think it's on one of the Bash 86 shows.
Yes.
Maybe one of the comps.
Maybe like remasters or something. No, that was 85.
That was 85. That was 85. That was 85. 86 had its own deal.
Yeah, I think Crockett put it out.
I'm sure it's on the network.
Sure.
But yeah, check it out. Shaska's reaction is priceless. Absolutely.
Is this when he starts picking up pieces of his hair and trying to put it back on his head?
Oh
Yes.
My God, it's
just working it, brother. Working it.
Yeah.
Working it. He could work both sides. That's something else about Shaska that we ought to bring up, man. It was how great he worked on both sides of this thing because he was so over as a baby, and he was so hated as a heel.
Yeah.
And he done those like silly little things that just made the crowd just eat it up, including myself. I mean, I remember that like it was yesterday, just laughing.
Oh my God.
Oh, just laughing at the man.
Best thing
ever. Justice has been served. And like I said, just going back and trying to put it on top of his head, it was just tremendous, man. A tremendous angle. And, really the name of this podcast ought to be the Shaska Watley Appreciation. Last week was Big Mama Appreciation. This week is Shaska Watley, Pistol Pez Watley.
The beginning of this thing was another
Big Mama
Appreciation.
Pudsters out there, we're probably going to talk about Big Mama every week in some way.
Likely.
We need to figure out a way to always bring up Big Mama.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to do.
No, it's not hard to do at all.
So now let me ask you, brother. So after the hair versus hair, correct me if I'm wrong, but this is around the time where Paul Jones starts becoming a little bit more personally active in the feud.
Yeah. If you look, through the past years, Jones would get active and on the big shows.
Yes, right.
He would step into the ring on the big shows like the Starcades, like the
Bashes, right,
anything like that. Boogie Man Jam.
Yes,
like
right.
Now, at this point, Jimmy had the hair versus hair with Shaska. At this point, he's gonna push it, and I want Jones.
Yeah,
I want Jones's hair.
Yes. Shaska's not enough at this point, man.
Nope.
Now we have to conquer. We have to conquer the leader here.
Yes.
We it's not enough
we're going for the head of the snake.
Yes. Yeah, perfect analogy. Yes, sir.
So, and we're still in the bash.
Right.
We're still deep into the bash.
Right.
And we had the match at the bash with Paul Jones and Jimmy Valiant.
Right. Are we about to go into one of my worst childhood memories of all time? Are we about to get into this?
This is one of the probably scariest moments, and I will say this probably as a kid.
Right.
And you probably remember. There's some interference, obviously.
Sure.
It was going to happen.
Of course.
And Jimmy loses the match to Paul Jones. If you get a chance, go watch it and check it out. It was a good match,
right?
Even for Jimmy and
Paul Jones
at that time.
Even with Paul being retired, semi-retired, he was still. We kind of touched on this just to kind of go a little side note again. We touched on this a little bit last week of how great Paul Jones was as a professional wrestler, but when I started watching, I didn't know that.
Right.
To me, Paul Jones was a manager, just a manager,
Always a manager.
like Bobby Heenan or Jimmy Hart, something, or a Cornette, even. And brother, I remember watching him wrestle even as a kid, being like, holy shit.
Yeah.
This manager can go.
Yeah.
It almost took away from his manager
Yeah.
persona to a degree, you know.
Because he could.
Because he could go, and he could still go. And, I mean, he was competitive as hell.
Right.
Well, not only was he competitive, but he won.
Yeah.
I mean, he beat the Boogie Woogie Man.
Beat the Boogie Man. Not for the first time.
Right.
This is the second time now.
Right.
Because, you remember back at the match at 84.
He had done it right. Now, I'm just thinking about myself on a personal, not being familiar with that.
Yeah.
This was, because, dude, I was shocked. Even with the interference, I was still like, holy shit.
Yeah.
What happened here?
Yeah. Exactly. And that was the reaction to everybody. This was probably one of the most heartbreaking moments in this whole feud.
Right.
Maybe one other could top it, but Jimmy is going to. He's lost.
He's going
to lose his hair.
Yes.
For real.
And what does he do? He does one of the most courageous. I'm talking integrity, man. I'm talking. I remember when I watched this as a kid.
Was there.
Sandy
Scott was there to cut the hair.
And Sandy Scott's there, brother. We've already went over this. It's a big fucking deal.
It's a big deal. Sandy Scott's there. It's a big deal. Something's gonna happen. Somebody else is there too, and he's throwing a damn fit. He's throwing a huge protest. Is the Raging Bull, Manny
That's
Fernandez.
right. Yes, sir.
And he's not going to let this happen.
Right.
Until Jimmy
stops him
and says...
He takes that chair, slams it down. He
Uh-huh.
sits down on his own accord.
Uh-huh.
Shaska had to be knocked out. Shaska was asleep.
Yeah.
Shaska would have fought it.
Yeah.
But Boogie Woogie Man, like a man. And, dude, I'm going to tell you, Mike, when I was a kid and I watched this, I felt pride being a fan of the Boogie. As much as I hated what was happening, I remember it affected me to watch this man do the right thing, even though he was cheated, man. He was shit on, but he sat down, he took it like a man, and they shaved that man's head, and he hated every second of it, and it made him bigger.
Well, you felt pride. I felt nothing but God.
Rage.
God. No, not rage. Fear. Fear. Because of the look in his eyes and his face when he sat down there and just looked straight at the camera while it was happening.
And looked into your soul.
I was uncomfortable at that point.
Because he was looking in your soul.
I had to look away.
It was rough. See, I couldn't, man. I couldn't take my eyes off of him. Because I was just like, this man.
Yeah.
But it was. He did the right thing. Yeah. And like I said, he got cheated. Yeah. He could have protested. Sandy Scott was there.
Yeah.
Sandy.
What are you doing, Sandy Scott?
Sandy Scott, step in and do something, Sandy Scott. Damn it, Sandy.
You can end this thing right
Sandy,
now.
You can make this right. But what did Sandy Scott do? He cut the man's hair. And once again, that was one of those profound childhood moments. Not even professional wrestling. I'm talking just in general. It was one of those profound moments where I was like, that's a man.
Yeah.
That's what a man does. That's what a man does. He made his mistakes, man. He said some shit out of bounds, you know what I'm saying? But he took his medicine. Yeah. But, brother, you would think the war would be over, right? No, sir.
This is not over by a long shot.
Oh, it just heated up.
This is getting...
Paul Jones won the battle.
Shot for a shot.
Oh, he won the battle.
It's a shot for a shot. It's a battle. Win this battle. The other wins the battle. The war's going to start. It's not going anywhere.
No. It is just now ramping up.
Yes. And Boogie Man's already down. He's lost his hair. You know, he's lost one of his friends.
Yes. He's beat down, brother. Yeah. He's beat down.
Now, to add insult to injury, Paul Jones starts courting looking for new members of the army.
He's looking at Sam
and starts courting the Raging Bull.
Yes.
Whoa.
And just another side note, doing my research, Mike, something I didn't remember and something we haven't discussed. Right, the week that Shaska joins and changes his name, changes his outfit, the fatigues come on, he makes the Raging Bull an offer the same day. The Bull tells him to go to hell, but he has the briefcase full of money at that time. And the Raging Bull does the right thing, like the Raging Bull had up until that point always done.
Yes.
And I can't put over how much I love the Raging Bull.
I love him.
Manny Fernandez was the real deal. And he was the real deal, man. In real life, he was the real deal, man. You did not fuck with the Raging Bull in the ropes or in the streets, man. In real life,
I loved watching Manny Fernandez matches.
Me too.
From that time, that was just amazing.
Yes, top of the food chain. Top of the food chain.
But once you start teasing something, usually that means
something's coming up.
It's coming.
Foreshadowing.
Eventually coming.
A little foreshadowing going on.
And this happens not on a TV show. Which, my God, it doesn't have it on a TV show. It doesn't have it on Worldwide. It doesn't have it on Mid-Atlantic. It doesn't have it happen on the TBS shows. This happens at a fucking house show.
A house show.
Can you believe that in this day and time?
No, today, doing that. No way. Back then, stuff like that would happen. That's what made going to these house shows so great because, man, you may be a part of history.
You never know what...
I mean, really. It could be title changes. It could be just what we're about to go into now. You know,
it could happen.
I mean, that was what was so magical. And it also kept that realism there, too.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, man. If it only happens on TV, how realistic is that? But this shit happened. It could happen at West Lincoln High School gym.
Could have happened there easily.
It could happen.
Yeah.
You know, we still remember when Abdullah beat the hell out of Dusty in West Lincoln.
Oh, my God. That was
a big deal.
That was a big deal. But it happens.
Right.
And it finally takes the money. It doesn't look like he's going to take the money.
Well, now, are we getting ahead? Now, when did Paul lose his? Was this before?
This was
after.
This is going to be the end of the year.
Okay. Because if we're going into the Manny Fernandez betrayal, and it's a fucking betrayal.
Oh yeah,
is what it is.
This is hard for me. This one's hard for me, even for me. It was a heel guy from that era.
So you know how I felt.
I didn't want to see this happen.
Right.
I honestly did not want to see this turn happen.
Right.
It could have been probably anybody.
But
I loved Manny. As a face.
Because he was the shit.
I honestly think at that time, they weren't doing a whole lot with Manny. Manny should have had that TV title. Manny should have had the U.S. title.
The U.S. title, yeah. The
Absolutely.
National title when it was still active. Yeah. I mean...
They weren't doing a whole lot with Manny at this point.
Definitely one of the most underutilized talents at that time, without a doubt.
I'll say his matches with Arn, Anderson,
were fucking freight trains, man.
Yeah,
just two freight trains hitting and working their asses off.
Yeah,
two tough big guys.
Yeah. And I think it was just underused.
And hardly any choreograph type stuff. No. See. Once again, new versus old. I'm getting ahead of myself again. That's another podcast. But once again, man, just two straight up pit bulls.
Yeah. Yeah, it could work, could talk, could go.
You believed it.
Yeah.
You believed it, man, because they believed it.
Yeah.
And I believed it because they believed it, man. You know, just phenomenal. But yes.
Exactly. But yeah, I didn't want to see this turn happen, but unfortunately, I mean, like I said, they weren't doing anything with Manny. And they needed another big boost.
Right.
But coming up is a tag team that we will not soon forget. I think maybe underrated. Not talked about a whole lot. And this would change Paul Jones's whole outfit completely.
We talking about R&R here?
We're talking about Rick Rude, the Raging Bull.
Yes, sir. The night they beat the Rock and Roll Express on TBS. Now let me ask you, Mike.
And that was 87.
That was December.
January.
It was December of '86. It was December of '86. Yes, right at the very end of the year.
Okay.
Now let's back up though, Mike, because Paul Jones loses his hair.
Now this doesn't happen till the end of the year.
Okay. I'm getting my time frames mixed. Okay.
So we're looking at, Shaska's going off.
Yes.
To do his own thing.
Because Shaska's about out of the picture at this point, right?
He's still Barbarian's still going to be a stronghold.
Oh, absolutely.
But he's going to kind of be back and forth between Dundee.
You're right.
As well, who was just coming in with him and Buddy Landell. Baron at some point, and I cannot figure this out. I cannot figure out the timeline. I cannot find any footage on it. I don't know how it happens. I don't know how it comes up. If anybody knows of this, please link me to this. At some point, Baron Von Raschke turns face.
Yes. I believe Wahoo was involved with that.
It could have been.
In my research coming up, I'm gonna see if I can pinpoint this stuff because I've got it somewhere in my archives. I'll just have to dig it up.
It may have something to do with at this time, Paul. He's pretty well banished the army. The army's broken up
at this point. Yes,
he's got Manny,
yes.
which I think. Honestly, that's the one he was after the entire time.
And I want to back up a little bit, Mike, and just reiterate how heartbreaking.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Because I know you were more of a heel fan, where I was the stereotypical Mark kid. I loved Dusty. I loved Magnum. I didn't like the Rock and Roll Express.
I even liked the Rock and Roll Express.
That was the one babyface team that I just never really. I liked the Midnight Express. We'll definitely have to do a whole. They were my favorite
because they were together and they gelled so well.
And Cornette was there, Bubba. We'll get into that. That's another. Oh man, we can talk about Cornette all day. Yeah. But when Manny took that money, I still remember my reaction of watching him, looking at it. I'm like, he's not going to do it. The Raging Bull. He's not, man. He's with the Boogie Man. Yeah. When he hit the Boogie Woogie Man with that briefcase full of that blood money, it was blood money, Mike. I'm getting hyped up, brother. I'm starting to get mad about it. I'm getting mad. But man, when he did that, let me tell you about it. I'm gonna tell you about it, man. Man, when he hit the Boogie Woogie Man, he didn't hit the Boogie Woogie. He hit me, man.
He's gonna give y'all a lesson today.
I'm gonna school y'all on what it's about to have your heart fucking broken. Cause man, when that Samsonite silver briefcase full of blood money hit the Boogie Woogie Man in his head, it actually hit me in my heart, Mike Payne. It actually hit Jason Finger right here in the soul, man. I wasn't even aware I had a soul until the Boogie Woogie Man's head got hit by that briefcase. And brother, I was heartbroken. I was heartbroken. That was one of those moments that we discussed where your Saturday's ruined.
Oh, yeah.
Your Saturday, the whole week is just screwed, man. Monday, it's like all the kids, hanging out on the playground, on the blacktop, like, I cannot believe. Really, man, that was a big one, man.
This video plays in Jason's head constantly on a loop. He just this is all that goes on in Jason's head.
That's it, man.
Just a loop of Manny Fernandez hitting on Jimmy Valiant.
Just hitting him with the briefcase, and
it's never left.
It's never left.
It's never left.
And I've not really ever gotten over it. The pain is still the same. Everybody's like, you can move on. The pain lightens up. You get used to. Not this one, bro. I've had ex-girlfriends that I was head over heels in love with that I've gotten over.
All right.
I still have not gotten over. When really, it was the greatest betrayal of all time. People talk about Judas and Jesus. I talk about Boogie Woogie and Manny Fernandez, man. That 13 pieces of silver, bro. 13 pieces of silver. That's all I'm gonna say. And it was a heartbreaker, man. I just cannot reiterate especially being a huge fan of the Boogie Woogie Man that I was, and just seeing and nobody would ever turn on the Boogie Woogie Man, especially the Raging Bull.
Right.
So that's all I got. That's all I got to say about it. I had to put my feelings out there, Mike. This subject is very near and dear to my heart. We talked about this. Yes, I mean
this is a huge deal in this whole saga.
Yes, and saga's the right word.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It was a big turning point because Jimmy's losing everything. He's got he's already lost his hair.
Yes,
he's got nothing left.
Two of his best friends. His brothers. Street brothers, man.
He's only got,
Big Mama.
He's only got Big Mama.
Big Mama's it.
Big Mama's it.
And Big Mama comes into play.
Yep, absolutely.
Big Mama ain't gone yet.
Yep.
Big Mama just getting going.
At this point, Jones is like, I've already
won
this one. I have nothing more to take from you, Jimmy Valiant. You were nothing to me.
I've done it all.
I've done it all. I've won.
Yeah, you have nothing left that I can take.
I have nothing left that I can get.
But there was one
thing.
And that rhymes with Big Mama.
Big Mama. She ain't gonna give up her titties.
No, thank God. I mean,
but
what would she give up?
She's got a big. If anything matched her big chest, it was her big
hair.
She had some big
ass hair. And all of a sudden,
hey,
the Boogie Woogie Man don't have no hair, but you know who does have hair?
Exactly.
And a lot of it?
Yeah.
Big Mama.
Big Mama.
Big Mama to the rescue.
All right. So you're gonna double down on this. You're gonna put Big Mama's hair against Paul Jones's hair.
There we go, man. How much more invested in an angle can you get now?
Oh man.
Because brother, like we talked about last week, and even at the beginning,
Boogie Woogie Man could lose his hair.
Yeah, dude, that would have never happened. See,
we didn't think that would happen.
That's why when Big Mama's hair got put on the line, I was like, holy shit.
Oh.
This is gonna get real. Because Big Mama could be a bald-headed geek.
Yeah.
And
what are you gonna do? I mean, what are you gonna do now? I mean, you got Manny there, you got Rick there. Yeah, Rick Rude, Manny Fernandez, in their corner. What do you do?
And the Baron still may have been. No, is he gone at he was gone at this point.
No, he wasn't gone. He was.
I mean, he was turned at this point. Got you.
How the odds are stacked against you?
Yeah.
How are you going? How is this going to happen? Well, Dusty has some friends too.
Sure.
You know, as far as being Jimmy's longtime friend, only friend, really.
It's still Dusty.
Through this whole thing is Dusty.
Yeah. If you
Dusty, if you will. Dusty knows a lady.
All right.
Her name is Betty Lou. Betty Lou happens to be almost like a shark cage.
You're right.
That gets hoisted up.
Yes, sir.
20 feet in the air.
I forgot about that. Yes.
And that's where Manny Fernandez is going to be through this whole match during Starrcade.
Going to level the playing field.
Absolutely.
If you will.
It's going to be Jones and it's going to be Valiant.
That's it. Right.
This is it.
Manny Fernandez is suspended above the ring in a cage. He can't do nothing.
Winner. There's got to be a winner. One-on-one.
Paul Jones's head of hair versus Big Mama's head of hair. And brother, Big Mama, if Jimmy loses this and Big Mama gets shaved,
it's done.
Where do you go, man? I mean, that's it, man.
It's done.
You wave the white flag.
Yep.
At this point. So what happens, brother? What goes on here?
This is a pretty intense match.
Good match.
It's a good match.
Great match. Yeah.
It's good. It's a really good match. You really never know what's going to happen because there's false finishes and just there's foreign objects everywhere and
great storytelling,
it is
man.
Incredible because you just don't know.
Yes, great storytelling.
But in the end, it's Jimmy Valiant for the win, and it is one of the greatest victories. Everybody feels like this is the victory.
This is dropping the bomb.
Boom.
This is the big nuke. It's over.
It's done.
Done and done.
Paul Jones is going to get his head shaved.
And he will be known from that point forward as a bald-headed geek.
Bald-headed geek.
Which was the worst thing to call somebody back in the 80s. You could call him a cocksucker, and that would... and it would...
You call him bald-headed geek.
That's a fight.
It was over.
That was a fight, man. Cocksucker, you can let that pass, man.
Yep.
Bald-headed geek, no, you take that back.
Yep. But yeah, it was such a huge victory. I mean, it was one of those things like, oh my God, this man has had everything taken from him in just this year.
Yes.
In this long year, his friends, his
hair, man,
everything,
his heart. Between Pistol Pez and Raging Bull, man. I mean, they just drove him down.
Yeah. And to lift back up and get this huge victory at Starrcade.
The biggest show of the year.
Biggest show of the year. This was it, man.
Yes. This was winning the Super Bowl.
This was incredible.
Right.
And Paul Jones, shaved head, and that was it. It may have been this match had a lot to compete with that night.
Right. Oh, that was a good card, man.
You're looking at it was Wahoo and Rick Rude, the
yes.
Manny and Stratton match.
Yes. This is Skywalker's, correct?
Skywalker.
Which was, maybe not the prettiest match ever. But probably one of the most promoted.
Huge.
Huge.
Huge deal. Somebody's going to die.
Yeah, and Cornette almost did,
Rock and Roll and Anderson's in the cage.
That was the
which
shit,
is,
man.
One of the greatest tag matches.
And Nikita, wasn't it Nikita and Flair? I mean, Jesus,
So,
man.
Nikita
You know,
taking Magnum's place. You know, as far as that goes,
Right.
and we're going to get
that's going to be a hell of a podcast.
That is going to be a big one as far as Magnum goes.
Yes.
We're going to get a lot of different scenarios.
Yes,
what ifs and alternate universes.
Yes, man. Yes. If you guys are liking the podcast now, wait till we start getting into what if Magnum wouldn't have been in the car accident. Who would you have turned instead of Nikita? These are just some ideas we're working on to stay tuned for.
It's just the what if universe.
Yes.
Who would you have seen?
Dream bookers, dream booking. Yeah, right. So like keep in touch, Puds, cause it's gonna get even better.
Right. So we're here at the end of '86, and this is the cool off point for the feud. The feud's not over,
right? But
by any means,
it's definitely winding down.
It is a big boom.
Yes.
So there's still gonna be some feuding. In on to 87 and 88. Believe it or not,
it's still there.
It's still going to go on. But this is a cool off point. Like I said, Paul has rearranged his stable.
Yes. You got Raging Bull and Rick Rude now.
Rick Rude, and they're going to go hot after the tag titles.
And like I said, the Army gimmick. Well, not that necessarily the Army, but the fatigues that Paul Jones wearing has now been switched back over. Now to the tuxedo. Now he's wearing a hat.
He's wearing a big, I guess, what is that? A fedora?
Kind of like a fedora top.
Like a big brim fedora.
Yeah, it was stylish, man. It was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I want to touch on moving forward.
He still got the mustache.
The porn stash.
Still got the mustache.
That's what he should have put up. Was the porn stash.
Yeah.
But one thing that I always thought was one of the best, especially as I got older and started realizing the art form behind professional wrestling and the way you present yourself. One of the things I thought was so much heat and just so awesome as a heel manager was when Paul Jones wore the mask. You remember that? After he shaved his head, he was so embarrassed he would come on TV, and that was so. In other words, man, you saw the opposite. You saw Jimmy the Boogie Woogie Man sit down and take his hair shaving.
Yep.
And
he wore a do-rag.
No, he did. He did.
I mean, he wasn't sporting full.
He didn't go full Lex Luger or Lex Luthor on us, but he was. But still, Paul Jones went to the extreme and wore a full face mask to hide his embarrassment, man. And this was great. Subject matter for like the David Crockett and Tony Schiavone, the commentators, to really put over how much of how embarrassed he was, and
it was just
David Crockett is just sticking him left and right about this mask, and I just just put it over so well. Once again, David Crockett was great. I don't care what anybody says.
I know he gets a lot of crap from everybody, but I thought Crockett was awesome. I thought it was awesome.
Me too, man. Me too. He's in that upper echelon for me. He just is.
Yeah.
So, and Mike, I want to talk a little bit about when the Raging Bull when Rick Rude came in to team with the Raging Bull, because we had heard about Rick Rude through magazines. Obviously he was impressive, man. I mean, he looked like $1 million. Nobody looked like Rick Rude.
No, absolutely not.
Nobody really worked. And just reading these magazines and kind of having a little bit of being somewhat familiar with him, when he came in as the Bull's partner, Jesus, what a tag team, man.
Absolutely.
I mean, you had like
it was one of those weird combinations where it wasn't like an established tag team.
No, it was
like,
two singles,
like the Midnights or the Rock and Rolls or
Russians,
or even the Russians or the Fabulous Ones or anything like that.
Yeah, great,
anybody like that.
Great examples.
Assassins, but it was
the Gladiators.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later.
Yeah, Thunderfoot.
Thunder Feet. We ought to have a Thunderfoot talk one day. That'll last 20 minutes.
Yeah,
but,
there you go. Could not.
You never know, man. We could get into it. Yeah.
But it's two great single wrestlers.
Absolutely.
I think put together.
Going against the best tag team at the time.
Absolutely.
Rock and Roll Express.
Yep. And they went in and
they
kicked their asses.
And they beat them.
Kicked their ass.
Yes. I did not like the Rock and Roll Express.
Right.
The only baby, good guys that I really just didn't like. And man, when Rick Rude pulled Ricky Morton's tights, I remember like it was yesterday, got that 1, 2, 3, I came off the floor. Because I hated Paul Jones, but man, this one time.
Now, don't lie. You came off the floor before that when they came out to
We Will Rock
We
You.
Will Rock You by Queen.
But, now, we are going to have a podcast about intro music, but that's up there. I still think Iron Man's the best, but...
And that was right.
That was up there, man.
It was right up there with it.
Dude, you heard that boom, boom, pow. It's like, oh. And the way, dude, just the way they all three walked to the ring. And, you know, that was...
It was badass.
It was badass.
It was totally badass.
I mean, you just can't put another label on it, but badass, brother.
It was badass as Warriors.
Yeah, oh, fuck yes.
Sure.
Absolutely. And the thing I loved about that team of Bull and Rude was you had two... obviously great wrestlers, but their style and their gimmicks were so different. Yeah. You know, Rick Rude like a male stripper.
Yeah.
And the Raging Bull looked like a street fighter.
Yeah.
And you put them, but they're both tough guys and both badass, and you put them and could work their asses off. Mm-hmm. Now you got Paul Jones, who changed up from the fatigues now.
Right.
You know, he's kind of got more of the tuxedos and the style. Badass.
Yeah.
Just there's no other way to do it, man.
Yeah.
Badass.
They were badass.
And who knows how long they could have went if Rude would not have, jumped ship, you know. Another
I know. Yeah.
Another one of those what ifs.
Another what if. You know, what would have happened? You know, how what would have happened? Where would this have gone?
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
That's the thing, who knows?
But I just know at that particular time, and Mike, has something else when I think back of that was in '86, but it always felt like it was later.
It did. It really did. Even when I said, '87, they went, no, it was like
it was in, and the reason I remember
'86 is when December, right after Stark.
Right after it.
On his titles.
Yeah, because I was looking at it because I wanted to watch that here a few months ago, so I looked it up and I was like, damn, really? Yeah. 86.
Yeah.
I thought it was about middle of 87. It's weird how your memory works too. You know, we talked about that a little bit, as kids. Well, it's like the Army fatigues with Paul Jones, man. That only went on for what? 6 months, 8 months, I think.
Maybe.
I think it started around April.
It feels like
it's a couple years.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like really, man.
It really did.
And I think the way that WWW, Worldwide Wrestling, and especially the pro shows, because that really was the forefront of their Saturday and Sunday morning shows, was this feud. I mean, obviously you had Dusty and Flair. They'd come out and, put over the house shows. But, man, as far as content on these shows, the feud, the Army, or the War, was pretty much prominent.
Yes,
I mean,
absolutely.
they would open the show or they would close the show with the Paul Jones and Boogie Woogie Man. So I think that might be another reason why it seemed like it just was so long, but it really wasn't in the grand scheme. But god damn, man, you talk about just making a lot of impact in a short period of time. Absolutely. Obviously the war lasted years, but I'm just talking about what I call the fatigue era, where, Right. So where we at, man?
So we're at the end of 86, and next time we will be going into the 87, 88 era, and it kind of gets a little.
Now this
is on the down.
Is this the Lasertron era?
We're going into a lot of stuff.
Right.
We're going into a lot of stuff like Lasertron.
Which we are going to have a hell of a debate about Lasertron, Mike Payne.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
I am the only member of the Lasertron Appreciation Society.
Paul Jones starts losing and picking up more people.
Right.
With the Ivan Koloff.
Oh, that's right.
The Powers of Pain.
Was Dick Murdoch with him? I don't know. I know he was with the Russians, but I can't remember.
He was with the Russians, but this was later, down 87.
Right.
That Koloff would join up with Paul Jones.
It was almost like you replaced the Baron in a way, because you kind of got that older vet, scary. That's another podcast we got coming up. It's actual.
It was another hand.
Yeah, heels that were really scary.
Because the Russian thing, as far as a group, started, just
after Nikita.
After Nikita turned, and you're talking about, like
they brought in Vladimir. What was his name?
Vladimir Pietrov.
Who was a huge. I mean, this guy was a fucking hoss, but he had no charisma, man. No. That's why, once again, just a little foreshadowing about an upcoming podcast that's somewhere down the line. We're going to discuss, Nikita. In my opinion, Dusty had 101 great ideas, but he always would have one that, maybe wasn't the best. And I always say that Nikita going babyface was probably not the best thing, because Nikita to me was the ultimate heel. I mean, he was scary.
Oh, yeah,
he was mean. He could take care of it. He didn't need to cheat,
right,
but he would.
Yeah.
you know, but he was just so intimidating, and he was Russian.
For sure, he was Russian. That made all the difference.
That really did.
That was that Chernobyl effect. I'm mixed on it too. And there's a lot of mixed emotions about him going face and going for that night that he turned. And we'll get into it. But it worked.
It did. It did.
Did it work in the long term?
That's
Probably
questionable.
not.
It's questionable,
Probably
man. No, that's not saying that he didn't have a great babyface run, bro.
Exactly.
I mean, him and Luger worked some great matches. I mean, of all the two people to really work great matches, too, Nikita and Lex, but they could.
Yeah.
I mean, they could tear it up.
I'll go back, at the Starrcade '87 with him and Terry Taylor.
Yeah. Oh, man, for the TV titles. Yes, man, that unification match. Terry Taylor was a great worker. I mean, a tremendous worker. Maybe not the most charismatic, you got to have that.
Yeah.
You definitely got to have that charisma. Well, look at Nikita, not a great worker. But my God, I mean, not really.
No.
I mean, not really. He was a big, strong, he worked that style wonderfully. And, brother, you talk about owning your gimmick.
Yeah.
I've heard some people kind of put down Nikita for not being the best worker. And I'm like, you know what? This son of a bitch changed his name and learned Russian, and you're going to talk shit about him not maybe being able to do an overbump?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck off, man. This guy went the extra mile, and hell, he didn't have to bump. Look at him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was
Well,
a gorilla.
He had to start it at some point where, and you could tell in that face turn.
Oh yeah, he
just started losing his mass.
Big time. As he grew his hair, his muscles dropped. It's that Chernobyl effect, man. It's the Chernobyl effect. The longer the hair, the smaller the muscles. It worked. It makes sense.
It's almost like a David Banner and the Incredible Hulk.
Perfect example.
There you go.
Perfect. Samson.
Radiation.
It's Samson but reversed.
Yeah.
And once again, that's because of those stinking commie Russians, man. Right. Everything's got a flip-flop on because of Chernobyl.
Yeah.
So I guess, Mike, we'll start wrapping it up for today, man. I think we covered 86 pretty well. Is there any other thoughts or anything you want to say?
I think this is probably definitely the height of the feud. Definitely. The most intense, the most emotional, for sure. And the most rewarding at the end, I think.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of feuds, sometimes you get a blow off on a feud, and it's kind of anticlimactic.
A little letdown.
Yeah. This is definitely the most rewarding.
Right.
At the end of the day, at the end of that year, it was the most rewarding.
I definitely think those series of hair versus hair matches, accumulating with Big Mama's hair being was without a doubt the peak. I mean, at that point, it did start.
It started going down towards, and they were hanging on to the feud.
Yeah,
for sure.
And like I say, Paul Jones is, as we discussed, his, I guess his focus being turned more onto the tag team with Rick Rude and the Raging Bull. I think his focus was turned so. And of course, they were the tag team champions, so they had to worry about the rock and roll spreads. Yes. The Fantastics were coming in. The Midnight's turn. I mean,
going to be heavy.
It was going to be a lot of competition.
This was going to be a tag heavy time for them.
Exactly.
New breed.
New
breed.
Who?
We're going to get into that discussion too.
Which man, I'm really disappointed that their prediction of Dusty Rhodes becoming president did not happen. I would have voted for Dusty all day long, all day strong, brother. If you will.
Well, there you go. Another alternate timeline. Maybe it's the pictures Baby Doll had back in 80.
They made it.
I'm just saying.
It changed the timeline, brother. I'm a huge Star Trek fan, and I'm telling you right now, these things do actually, affect the timeline. So Dusty wasn't able to be president. That was Baby Doll's fault. That's okay. We'll talk about Baby Doll a little bit later.
We'll get it.
Another crush of mine from back in the day. Baby Doll was the perfect 10.
Oh my.
Between. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, well, Mikey, man, once again,
definitely next week we're gonna talk about we're gonna wrap this up with the wind down of the feud.
Yes.
Yeah, Dan, this has been awesome.
I'm enjoying this, man. We're 2 weeks in. Once again, if you're listening to this out there on YouTube or on Facebook, we have a Facebook page, by the way, the PUDcast with Jason and Mike. Please like us on Facebook. Subscribe to our channel.
Like and subscribe and share, please.
I cannot believe I'm actually saying that shit, Mike. I've heard people say this shit for years. I'm
God.
like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
And now I'm over here like, hey, like and subscribe and share and spread the word. And
Absolutely.
you know,
if there's something you like that we're doing, let us know.
If something you don't like.
If you don't like, let
us
us know,
know,
please.
man.
That's how we're going to grow and how we're going to, hopefully, better what we're doing and entertain everybody, as much as we can.
Yeah.
I know we entertain ourselves a lot.
And truth be told, as much as we love you, Puds, and we do, man. I mean, the people that have reached out and gave, advice and just was being very supportive, man. We love y'all, but make no doubt, me and Mike do this for me and Mike. Yeah. And if you guys could come along for the ride, that's even better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's what we really want.
Yeah.
And we want to, I think I even put it on our Facebook page. It's like, we're new, we're starting out, we're learning. But we want y'all to come along for the ride.
Absolutely.
We want to, and we're going to be bringing people on. I've already had a few people reach out to me. They want to come on and just talk about wrestling or just talk about anything. We have an A-Team episode coming up with Chris Eisenberg that I am I am stoked for this one. Of all the stuff we've talked about, some upcoming subjects that we may be touching on. I think we talked about Star Trek versus Star Wars. I'm a Star Trek guy. Mike is a Star Wars guy. That should be fun. We're going to be
definitely going to get into different aspects of pop culture.
Yes.
Just not just wrestling. A big chunk of it's going to be wrestling for sure. But yeah, we're definitely going to get a lot of pop culture stuff from all different eras.
Yeah. And man, one thing that we can look into, and we'll probably talk about this more as we move forward, is how pop culture and professional wrestling have always been intertwined. Yeah. Even political, just social issues have always reflected each other. Absolutely. And we'll be getting into that. But before we sign off, once again, I want to thank you, Mike, here at Game Swap for having us.
Anytime. It's so much fun just to do this.
Yes. Yeah.
And I enjoy it.
And getting the feedback from our friends and stuff who are enjoying it as well. I think one of the best compliments from two people we know personally. One person, Dustin Fowler, thank you for listening to us. He said on our page that it was like listening to us back in the day.
Yeah.
It's like it reminded me of listening to y'all talk while we're hanging out around the ring.
Right.
Jeff Roberts, he as well said it. Man, I'm listening to you guys, and I started talking to you guys. It was like he was so caught up in our conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And that's what we're looking to do. We just talking shit, man. We're just bullshitting like we always do, just conversating, and we just want people to listen and have a good time and hopefully be a little entertained, maybe learn some shit, and have a few laughs. Yeah. And like I said, Mike, here at Game Swap, thank you. Want to give a shout out to the MWF, the Millennium Wrestling Federation. I want to always give those guys some props and just go support them, guys. Once again, I don't have any information. I had a long night, man. I went to the Skinner concert last night, so I'm on about 4 hours sleep. And brother, let me just say this: if you've never been to, this was the last tour, so you'll never maybe have the opportunity again unless they go on another retirement tour. But if you never had a chance to go see Leonard Skinner, you should go, if for no other reason, just to see the crowd, the tease this band attracts. Jesus Christ, man!
It's like a wrestling crowd.
It's
absolutely back in the day.
Yeah. It is absolutely a wrestling crowd. Yeah. You cannot help but have a good time.
Absolutely.
And well, Mike, brother, I guess we'll go ahead and start thinking about signing off. Thank you guys out there for listening, man. Pud Mania's running wild. We're going to have this bad boy up hopefully by the end of the day, maybe tomorrow tops. But just keep tuning in.
Absolutely. Episode 2 is out.
It's out. Tune in at same Pud time, same Pud channel for episode 3. And until next week, y'all have a good one. And thank you again.
And not only that, David, I understand we're right at the end of our program.
No, we have got to go.
This has been a great event.
There's some people out there that hate us for this.